Artificial intelligence is changing the world top to bottom.
Artificial intelligence will revolutionize the way we work, learn, and communicate.
The rise of artificial intelligence has led to major changes in the workforce.
I use AI almost every day.
We use Otter AI, which I'm sure a lot of journalists are familiar with now.
You have to use it to make your life easier.
I will use ChatGPT, just copy and paste my emails in there and zhuzh it up a little bit.
What if I told you guys you could create a 3D version of yourself, step inside the only 3D volumetric capture studio in the entire country?
Apple is trying to make a name for himself in the AI space that is already very competitive.
What we want is AI that is helping us cure cancer, that is helping us find climate solutions.
There's a cancer where the AI predicted it would be.
What else it can do and how many other people it can help, I think that's a much stronger use of AI.
Autonomous burger delivery robot.
These robots, they don't have to call in sick, they don't have to take a lunch break, and they don't have to leave work early for an emergency.
AI is even coming for your plate of food, letting you know your calorie intake in real time.
No one is inside except for us. We're on our way.
Can artificial intelligence be used to provide effective therapy?
How does it compare with an actual therapist?
Content's pretty similar.
What is Boomi?
Boomi is a generative music platform that allows you to build songs from different styles.
This is what my voice sounds like when I clone it. This is what my voice sounds like when I clone it. That was it.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman cautioned Congress about the threat of artificial intelligence.
Why are people so scared of AI?
Here we go.
We're already seeing how potentially dangerous good AI deep fakes can be.
Mayor Adams has released an AI action plan promising new city rules for the use of machine learning.
La inteligencia artificial ya es parte de nuestras interacciones diarias con la tecnología. Por ello, la regulación es tan indispensable.
El futuro es ese. Yo creo que eso es inevitable.
How does all of this work, and how concerned should we be about the potential dangers of AI?
25% of teachers in America think AI does more harm than good for the student.
One of the largest cybersecurity conferences and is largely focused on protecting data and artificial intelligence workloads in the cloud.
It does kind of open up thought about where this information comes from and who ultimately benefits.
The future of AI technology, especially in like the news journalism space, is something that is continuing to evolve.
It is definitely a little scary, but I think it's going to be very helpful in journalism.
Let's go.
Hello everyone, I am Berend Cheung and welcome to the AI Generation, a Student Innovation Summit. We are coming to you live from Columbia College Chicago in the heart of the Windy City. Give it up, one of the leading technology hubs in the United States. And in our audience, who has given us such a roar of applause there, we have about 100 students and educators from across this great city. And they're all here to learn what is the future of AI? What does it mean for the media landscape? And how will it impact their future careers? Now, this summit, brought to you by NBCU Academy and Project Up, is aimed at helping you wrap your head around the best uses of this emerging technology. And just to underscore how rapidly AI is arriving and the stakes that come with it, I want to share a few fast facts with you. First, a new study predicts that the rise of artificial intelligence will boost the global economy by $20 trillion, trillion with a T, by the year 2030. And yet, more Americans, 52%, are expressing concern about AI. That's an uptick from previous years, and only 10% say they're excited about it in a recent Pew Research poll. So, over the next few hours, you're going to learn about AI and the future of work. We're going to ask questions like, where are the jobs? What are the skills that you're going to need to compete? Plus, how can you actually responsibly use this technology? We're going to give you practical, hands-on tools that you can use right now to supercharge your career. And also, we're going to ask the question about how AI is impacting the field of journalism. We have so many NBC News, Telemundo folks here as well. We're going to ask newsroom leaders, and they're going to tell you that it's transforming the industry more quickly than they can keep track. Now, our all-star panel will tell us how they're harnessing the power of AI, including a local newsroom leader whose reporters used AI to win a Pulitzer Prize. Big deal there. Now, in case you're wondering, what's NBCU Academy? What is Project Up? Just a few, points here. NBCU Academy is an award-winning journalism and media training program that partners with 45 colleges and universities across the United States, including CCC, where we are right now. And the goal is to build a pipeline for journalists, filmmakers, and anyone that's interested in media and tech. Now to Project Up. Project Up from Comcast supports NBCU Academy and has pledged $1 billion over 10 years to help bridge the digital divide and to power digital navigators. Now, throughout the summit, we're going to want to hear from you. So if you're tuning in virtually, you can drop your questions in the Q&A box, which should be on your screen. And we're also going to be taking questions from our audience here at Columbia College Chicago. So these folks have been here all day. They're already warmed up. They've been networking with top executives from NBC Universal and beyond. So I know you have good questions. We'll be able to take some of those later on. Okay, well, let's get right to it and get into our first discussion here. And if you ask anyone about AI, you're going to hear concerns about work, how it's going to impact people's jobs. So joining me now to tackle this topic is our expert panel here. And we're starting off with Berend, who is the Chief Digital Officer at NBCU News Group. We have Kristina Francis in a wonderful orange suit, by the way, I should add, Executive Director of JFFLABS at Jobs for the Future. And we have Andrew McCaskill, a career expert at LinkedIn. So I'm going to start off here by having each of you go, and maybe we'll start with you, Chris. Just share a little bit about yourself, about your job, and the work that you do.
So I'm the Chief Digital Officer for the NBCU News Group. So in very basic terms, that means that I lead a group of technologists, product people, various different functions that really oversee all of the consumer digital products that our brands use to connect with audiences. So the websites, the apps, the streams, the shopping carts, a lot of different different digital interfaces are overseen by my group. As part of that, we're always looking at emerging technology, and so our team, along with other pieces of the news group and the company, are looking very closely at generative AI.
Kristina?
Thank you for having me. And hi, everyone here in the audience. Let's say hi. Let's clap, clap, clap. So good to see you. So I'm Kristina Francis. I'm the Executive Director for Jobs for the Future. It's a national nonprofit that's been around for 40 years. We have a North Star where by 2033, we want to make sure that 75 million workers who face systemic barriers get into a quality job. I get the pleasure of leading an amazing team of thought leaders that are really focusing on the future. We're looking outward and around the corner at the opportunities of, the risks of, the imperatives of technology, new models, and capital, the flow of capital to actually make changes, improvements, and maybe reimagine education and workforce.
Hi, my name is Andrew McCaskill. I am a Senior Director at LinkedIn. I am a LinkedIn career expert. LinkedIn, as many of you know, is the world's largest professional network. We have about 1 billion members that are coming to LinkedIn to learn new skills, get information and news about industries that they can trust and rely on to find jobs and opportunities. Every 6 seconds, somebody gets a job on LinkedIn, and every day about 60 million companies worldwide come to our platform to source talent. And what I do largely is I spend a good bit of my time helping people from underrepresented groups, primarily, not just in the US, but what that means globally, understand how to use our platform and to give them career advice that marries all the things that are happening in the real world, but all the things that are happening online and in tech as well. So happy to be here.
So the cool thing about this panel is that we have a range of different views from the industry, from the nonprofit world, from LinkedIn, and about what the career industry looks like and how AI plays into it. But I want to start off by just kind of setting the stage here. I want to ask for a show of hands in the audience, how many people here can say they feel confident about knowing the difference in the types of AI that's out there? Raise your hand if you feel confident in it. Okay, I would say polling the crowd, that would be maybe like 2 to 3%, because AI is not a monolith, right? There's so many different types. So I think what we should do here, just to kind of set the stage for this panel, is do a quick breakdown of the different types of AI. Starting off with general AI. So this is theoretically a machine that equals or surpasses human capabilities to solve tasks. This is the scary one, right? Like, we're not there yet, but this is the AI of the future. This is like the Terminator stuff, or this is the really transformative stuff that can make us as humans more productive than we've ever been. Then there's narrow AI. We're kind of here right now. This is designed to perform a specific task or limited task. So in other words, if you just put some words in, you say generate, or can you pull up for me a photo of this, or can you pull up my calendar event planning for this. You can do that through Alexa, you can do that through Siri. We have that right now. Then there's the medium ground that we're kind of in right now, which is generative AI, right? These are things where you can create things that might not exist right now. Text, images, sound, video. And this is the really cool stuff and kind of was brought up to full speed by ChatGPT and DALL-E and other types of products. If it can't find the answer, because you say, hey, I want a photo of Brian Cheung dunking on somebody, well, it doesn't exist. But the AI can make that just through imagination, right? And that's a really cool thing, but it also brings up questions about misinformation, disinformation. So with that baseline understanding, we've kind of set the stage already for the kind of opportunities, but also the potential downsides of using this technology. And I want to ask you guys, what do you see as like the most significant ways that AI is impacting the workspace right now? Because I feel like there's a lot of conversations happening in offices where, hey, we should try to embrace this technology, but we have to be mindful of an ethical use of this. Start with anyone.
Yeah, I'll just start. I certainly within the world that I live in with my colleagues every day in the news space in particular, the rise of generative AI over the last 12 to 18 months has really brought to the fore this issue of mistrust in media and fundamentally knowing what's real and what's not. Part of the mission of journalism is to get people to the truth. And so it's put an extra challenge in front of us. Put aside the benefits of it and potentially the way we work, but the ecosystem with which journalism and news functions is really in a series of challenges around trust right now. And generative AI has really sort of amped that up, right? And it's made the bar, excuse me, made the bar higher for us to make sure that our journalism is unimpeachable and that we make sure that consumers know that there are real people doing the work behind the journalism.
Any other thoughts?
I can start. You know, AI is not just automating tasks. It's actually helping us redesign our roles at work, changing the way that we are actually working so that we have success in and at work. We released a report a couple of months ago around generative AI and use cases, particularly around workforce and development. We had the opportunity to talk to corporations and individuals that were actually using the technology and watching how people are using it. So there were, you said 2% here that aren't really sure about AI. I think right now is a great time for people to use the technology, co-create with one another. We're starting to see employers empower their employees with agency to redesign their jobs, change how they're working, change how they're collaborating, maybe even change how they're looking at solutions for the problems. We also work a lot with startups, particularly startups that are starting businesses that support economic development and advancement. And we're starting to see a lot of agentic AI or AI bots that are supporting customization and personalization for learners and workers, and it's amazing to see how that's actually changing how people are interacting with those platforms. And I think the other thing that we're seeing that I'm really excited about is just new ideas popping up. People have new ideas. Some are resulting in new businesses externally, and some are actually creating entrepreneurs within their businesses. And so that's a really amazing thing to see.
I think for us, one of the things that is really important is we're starting to see this sense of urgency around AI. Is that if you take a look at in the last quarter, 40% of the S&P 500 companies talked about AI in their earnings. This is the CEOs talking to Wall Street, and only about 40% of those companies are actually tech companies. So that means you've got hospitality, logistics, you've got travel and transportation companies that are talking about the impact of AI on their business every day. And so we're also seeing that more and more in job descriptions, these recruiters and hiring managers are wanting people to have some level of familiarity with AI, that they played with it, right? I predict that the #1 question that most recruiters or hiring managers are going to ask in the next 18 months in job interviews is, how are you using AI in your personal or your professional life? And if you don't have some answer for that, I think it's gonna put you in a less of a pole position for that particular work, and that's really interesting and different from how we've thought about jobs across the board in the past.
I would say just on top of that, like I think right now at this very moment is an incredible time to get to understand and deeply know a technology that certainly we're very, very early with this technology, and it's going to be around for a very, very long time, and it's going to keep changing massively very quickly. And so you have an opportunity now to be at the very beginning of understanding it and knowing what it's good at, but also being very clear about what it's not very good at, right? Generative AI is not a sort of a binary, it's good or it's bad. It's both of those things, right? And so the more you understand the pros and cons of it, the strengths of it and the weaknesses now, it will be a huge advantage for you going forward. Whether you're actually applying it in the workplace or not, understanding it fully, that means as it grows and continues to evolve, you'll have a leg up in sort of knowing where it's most applicable.
And Chris, I think that's a good way of kind of describing why now is such an important moment specifically for people that are in college right now, and you might be looking for opportunities soon, which I think is a nice segue into a pre-submitted question that we have from Allison. Shout out Allison. How do you think AI will expand or limit career opportunities for the next generation? Open floor.
I can say that. You know what's so interesting? I have a 17 and 16-year-old, and we were just talking the other day that at this moment in time, this is the worst this technology is going to be. Yeah. And so we've got so much growth to go, and it's crazy to think because 2 years ago, generative AI was not something we were using every day, and I can't imagine my life without it. There was a movie when I was younger called Brown Sugar, and there's a quote in there that says, when did you fall in love with hip hop? I know when I fell in love with AI, generative AI. So I think, the team that I run, a couple of characteristics of our team. We're daring, we're optimistic, we're futuristic and experimental. Right now for AI, one of the things we want to make sure is that it's in the hands of everyone, not just a few. We see that AI can really transform individuals as they're looking for, careers and jobs, as they're trying to job match, as they're trying to navigate their careers. And so I think right now we're at a really critical point. We actually haven't released this data yet, and so I'm going to share it with you.
Oh, deep tease.
Yes, absolutely. We've been looking at job descriptions and how job descriptions are changing. So in the last year and a half, the AI and artificial intelligence has increased 16% in job descriptions, but that's not the interesting piece. The interesting piece for us was that 82% increase for jobs that did not require a high school or only required a high school diploma, and 26% increase for jobs that required an associate's degree. And so what we're seeing right now is just that the AI, generative AI literacy are critical and will continue to be critical.
So actually, we have a virtual audience question, but I actually want to jump to a stat that Andrew, you have, because I think that fits with what you're just talking about, Kristina. There's a LinkedIn survey that says 22% of recruiters say they are updating job descriptions to include generative AI, which kind of gets at your point that recruiters are trying to sniff this out. But what types of skills do you think recruiters are looking for? Because saying I used ChatGPT once can't be something you would want to just put on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I would say that when I'm thinking, when we're talking to recruiters and what they're looking for, they are looking for people who understand. First of all, if you don't know what a large language model is, then you probably need to go out and take a learning course or go and take one of those free LinkedIn and Microsoft certification courses that you can just pop on and take so that you get to be conversant about this technology, because there are going to be questions about it, right? The thing that I think that they're looking for, they're definitely looking to hear people who understand the language and lexicon of AI, that they're playing around with generative AI, that they can, that they're really good at prompts, that they have use cases in their own lives or how they're putting together their portfolios, depending upon what level of creativity that they're using, et cetera, that they have real use cases for this, that they can, because companies are trying to figure this out too. We're in that messy middle where there is all of this urgency. People want to really understand, and they want to bring in people who can help them decode this incredible fast-moving innovation as well. So they want people that with smart minds who are thinking about it, that are also using it. To your point of giving people permission to play around with technology tools in a way that we've not seen that happen before. And that is really, I think is really interesting in terms of what people are asking for. But I also think that the fact that AI is really, really important. It is one of those things that recruiters are asking for, but AI skills are not putting people at the top of the list alone. The future of work is still human. The most in-demand skill that we saw from LinkedIn globally from recruiters is communication. You're in the right place, number one, right? The most in-demand skill 2 years in a row has been communication. So what I think what that says is that recruiters are looking for, and companies are looking for people who are willing to be creative and race with the machine, to put human intelligence and artificial intelligence together in the most creative ways. That's what companies are looking for. They're looking for innovative thought and people who think innovatively and communicate with each other so that they can get to solutions and ideas and productivity and new strategies faster. That's what I think is going on with the data. That's the insight behind the data point.
So humans still on top. That's the good news. That's
100%.
the top takeaway. Well, I mean, this segues into our virtual audience question, which, by the way, I want to remind everyone that you can drop questions for our panelists in the Q&A tab on the right of your screen. I believe this question is one of them from Bethany. Some educators feel AI is harmful. How can we transform this thinking, or should we?
I think you've got to get AI in the hands of teachers as well, right? As we're bringing AI into the classroom, students are using it, families are using it. We've got to get it into the hands of teachers. There's actually an amazing professor at Morehouse University, Dr. Messina Morris, who is actually working with professors and teachers to help them work together and create. So this idea of co-creation, I think every sector is needing this right now, bringing them together. So I think that's one, is to make sure that teachers also are getting their hands dirty. I think the other, and I say dirty because I'm thinking of going into and learning, but parents have a role to play, whether you're in middle school, high school, and even a college moving forward, is really to make sure families are upskilling as well.
And Chris, I mean, how about in the workplace? Because you were talking earlier about how it's a tool, it's both good and bad.
Right.
You know, I think that question was kind of asking the question, do we need to view it one way or the other?
I think it's important not to view it sort of in an either or context. Again, it's about understanding what it's really, really good at and what it's still not very good at and may never get very good at, right? The other thing is that I think too often when we talk about generative AI, most people shorthand it and just they're referring to ChatGPT. The fact of the matter is that ChatGPT is one of, at this point, probably nearly millions of different software tools that is available to you that leverages generative AI. So ChatGPT is really good at summarizing things. It's not great at giving you real-time facts, for instance. But there are other versions of software that are creativity tools that help you create music, they help you create video, they help you create art, they help you think through a very, very complex problem, right? I think the more that you are well-rounded in how you are learning the technology, and again, applying it to your interests or your passions, it's really going to help you speak very informed about it and know where to apply it and where you shouldn't. And the other thing that you know, going off what was mentioned earlier, there's a very good chance that if you properly educate yourself about the technology now, you will likely be smarter about it than the person who is asking you about it.
Absolutely.
Right? And so you're going to be educating them about it. So put aside what you think they want to know and what you think they think the answer is. If you can speak in a really informed way about the technology and then how it applies to that particular field, I think you're going to be in a very strong position across the board.
And to do that, you've got to do it every day. And I just want to share a story just even about my career. When I graduated from college, degree in psychology and English, I started at the height of the .com. I really liken that time to where we are now. I was going to work for 1 year and then go back to get my PhD. That never happened. It didn't happen because the job that I started, they created a new role called a database administrator. And at that time, a database administrator was new for many corporations. And I raised my hand and said I would do it. That employer sent me back to get my Microsoft Certified Solution Developer certification. So I had a degree, that certification, and I spent 20 years building software. That was nothing I was training for. It wasn't even a role in my head that I could do, but because I raised my hand and said yes. And then I ended up supporting those who are on Lotus Notes and actually transitioning them to Java and other things. I know that was dated back then.
Throwback.
Have to laugh at that myself, but to that point, you know, don't be afraid. We're all in the learning era right now, every one of us. It doesn't matter how long someone's been in the job. We're all in the learning area, so I would say be courageous, test it out, talk to one another, and you never know where you're gonna go.
Think of it as a skill, right? Think of this learning journey as it relates to AI as a skill. These are tools, and having different versions of this tool, being able to operate different versions of the AI tool as a skill, right? And it's a skill that you'll be able to use, and you'll be able to constantly get better at and talk about it to employers, prospective employers, as a skill. It's like, this is something that I can do. I'm really good at learning how to use these tools in a really effective way. And I think as it relates to whether or not teachers should have AI in the classrooms, you should have the things in the classrooms that are going to be in the real world, with the caveats and understanding that all tools have good and less good use cases, right? And to be aware of that is what I think is most important, is that you don't teach people how to use AI. You teach people great, ethics, and you teach them, all of the creativity, and you push for that, and let the AI be a tool as opposed to being the function, right?
I think we have a question in the room, so I'm going to turn over here to the left side over here in Columbia College, Chicago. If you could just say your name, where you're from, and your question for our panel.
My name is Cheung. I'm from south suburb of Chicago. So my question will be, basically, when we look at things the way they are, there's a bridge or there's a gap between generations as far as technology is concerned. So how are we going to cut it off? How are we going to bridge the gap? When you talk about using AI as the topmost to get a job, there are so many people out there who don't have idea of technology. How are we going to bridge the gap so that the other generation before this generation will be able to get into the work setting having the knowledge of AI?
Yeah.
Great question.
I would say one thing about the technology, which I think is really compelling and promising, is that more than likely, generative AI is not about learning how to code. Yeah. Generative AI is going to show up in the things predominantly you already use. And it's just going to, like magic, feel like it makes things easier, right? If you actually know how to sort of prompt it and use it, you can get extra utility out of it. And so I don't know that there is going to be, with this technology, and part of the reason it's so attractive to so many people, there's not this huge learning curve in order to use it and to leverage it, because it'll just start showing up in your phone. It's going to start showing up in whatever email you use. It's going to, if you create video or photography or art or music or whatever it is, it's going to be a tool that starts showing up. And so the more you're familiar with it and you sort of understand it, and if you combine it with, frankly, good old-fashioned hard work and curiosity, I think that you can, I think the gap is actually not going to be nearly as big as it has been with other technologies.
And it's so available too, it's right there. I think that what we have to realize is that you're using AI embedded in tools now, currently, all the time. AI is largely just a really, really highly educated guess, right, of what the next thing is going to be. It's predictive in that way. And so that's embedded in a ton of technology that you're already using. I think as we talk about bridging generational gaps, or even the digital divides that we see, whether it's by socioeconomics or racial ethnic divides, I do think that this is one of the first times of any sort of big industrial revolution where access has been largely democratized in a way that we couldn't say in any other sort of industrial revolution. I think that the sense of urgency to start to learn and play with these tools, particularly for people, I think, from historically or systemically marginalized groups, this is probably one of the first opportunities where there's something that's right within our grasp that could actually close some of those use case gaps, some of those knowledge gaps. LinkedIn data says that roughly 71% of executives said that they are willing to hire someone with AI skills and no experience over someone with experience and no AI skills. So to me, that says, I don't care if you are 85 or 25. I don't care if you are a person of color or not a person of color. If you come in here and you know how to use these tools and you have these skills, you're hired, right? And I think that that's this has the potential to be an incredible career accelerator for people who have felt like that they have been on the other side of being marginalized in their careers in the past.
Thank you so much for the question. Really great. I want to move on to kind of ethics here, because this is very important, right? I mean, like as a correspondent, we are very rigid at NBC News about when we do and don't use AI. And we have done stories about AI, but we've also made it clear in the stories that we're doing about AI, when we're showing video of something that may have been generated by a DALL-E or by a ChatGPT and what have you. Chris, at NBC News, or at NBCU broadly, what are some principles that guide the approach to AI in making sure that we're using it, but also using it ethically?
Well, I think that, before you even dive into sort of how you want to use generative AI, I think you have to start with principles, and you have to start with ethics. In particular within our industry, I think the two that stand out the most to me are, one is we believe fundamentally that journalism is created by journalists, not by robots or machines, right? That there are people sort of on the other side of the camera or the byline or whatever it may be. The second really high level is that it should really empower our people to do their jobs better, more efficiently, more creatively, whatever the context may be. It should enrich our products and make the consumer experience better, right? Across the board, we have to stay true to these principles and to become sort of like a filter for us. So the question comes in, there's a nifty tool over here, over there, and we want to use it to do X, Y, Z. Should we? Well, you start with the principles. And so wherever you go, wherever you end up, whatever workplace you are in or what field you are in, you have to sort of start with what you believe first. And then you can apply it to the technology, and that's how we've looked at it.
Any other thoughts?
I have so many thoughts.
Let her rip.
I actually, if I can, I want to go back to the previous question. I'll tie it in here, just around the multi-generational workforce, because people are working a lot longer than they have. You said 85 to 20. I was just with someone yesterday whose mom worked until she was 90 years old, and still she just wrote a book and doing a lot of work. And so I actually think there's an opportunity for companies to bridge together those who have been in the workforce for a while and partnering them with someone who's just entering the workforce. So you actually mirror people who have the technology skills and then the institutional knowledge. So I think that's important. On the policy side, I think policy sometimes is slower than how people are learning the technology and using it. And so this is a time where we can learn from one another. I think best practices of what you're doing can be shared with other people, but it's also up to the employees and corporations, I think, to help co-create what those policies are and make sure that we're protecting data.
And I think we have another audience question here at Columbia College Chicago. If you could say hello, where you're from, and a question for the panel.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. My name is April Welch. I'm from the Illinois Institute of Technology and thrilled to be here. And my question is about those nifty tools, as you call them. So as you mentioned, all of the graduates getting jobs today will need to be able to speak to AI. So I'm wondering what tools you would recommend that have done their due diligence on data bias, have less hallucination. What tools would you recommend that someone just getting started look into and learn and be sure that they can talk about if they're in an interview?
I will say that I can't speak to tools that that I would say that are less likely to have the hallucinogens and things like that. I will say that think about the industry that you're in. I think about how you use AI is everybody's job is a list of tasks. And think about those tasks that go along with whatever that job description is, and then identify what tools could I use to automate this particular task that goes along with this job, right? I think that's the way you have to strategically think about how you don't get lost in the conversation about your skills in AI, that you still talk about all of this great experience that you have in all of your human skills, and then you think about, okay, are these tasks that can be done, that can be automated? That's when maybe I bring in, and I have used AI for this, for putting together my portfolio, or giving me just that one last proofread before I do this, or et cetera. I think that's how you manage being able to speak to the fact that, hey, I know how to use these tools. I'm not afraid of these tools. I know how to make them work with the work that's in front of me, as well as, and I've got all these amazing skills about that, and this experience that shows you my creativity, my tenacity, my curiosity, and my ability to write really, really well and present really well.
Thanks so much for the question, April. We're going to turn now to a question from our virtual audience, from Christopher, who asked the question, what should we be prioritizing when teaching AI to college students? And since we just kind of addressed the question about what kinds of tools, maybe let's talk about perhaps soft skills or other types of classroom instruction that could be helpful for folks that are trying to get into the industry.
So I think we talked about AI as a skill. You talked about communication. I know LinkedIn also, I don't know, it was last year or the year before, adaptability was another skill. So we're seeing actually durable skills and technology skills now almost being equal for what employers are looking for. And so I would say, as we are, and as you are, learning the technologies, to learn how to work in groups, learn how to really interrogate questions, interrogate data and information. Also understanding how you're using the data. Again, we're all learning together. I'm going to keep saying that. We're all learning together. And so really bringing what you're learning to the discussion. Those are things that I would say.
Yeah, analysis. Being able to look at content and being able to figure out what is fact and what is opinion, right? Just things like that. Like the other thing, you talked about adaptability, and for those of you that may be like, well, adaptability, like make that a little bit more clear, is people who will see change and they will pivot and not panic. That's what adaptability is that no matter what is in front of you, you won't panic. You'll actually pivot. And I think that if there's anything I would add to that in terms of the soft skills is being able to be in a situation at work where you collaborate versus compete with each other. That's going to be really important, particularly for those of you who are in the beginning of your careers and you're starting out, because I think that being able to collaborate with folks early and building a community and a network of people who are rooting for you to win inside of your organizations is even more critical for all and for each and every one of you as you start out in those parts of your careers. And listen, relationships will save you sometimes when results won't, and that could be more beneficial to your career than even the fastest AI automation tool. So
I want to turn it now to the audience real quick. How many of you, by a show of hands, have actually used AI in your work, be it in the classroom or? Okay, I mean that's mostly everyone. So people are familiar with this, and that kind of gets at your point, which is that there are many ways to use this, and I think that as long as you're just familiar with it, you're trying to play around with it. I think that that's kind of a big key as part of this conversation as well. I want to turn now to another audience question here. If you could again say your name, where you're from, and the question for the panel.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Roswin. I'm a business student right here at DePaul University in Chicago. So I guess my question to you guys is, how can we make AI more accessible to everyone and educate people on how it can make their lives and work more productive?
Yeah, I can start that one. I feel like so a couple of things. I think, we have philanthropy, we have 2-year, 4-year colleges, we have government. We have entrepreneurs. Everyone right now has to play in this economy and has to pull their weight, I should say, in this economy. Employers are already doing a lion's share of work. We did a study last year, I think it was last year, and 88% of people who took that survey last year said that they didn't trust their employers to upskill them. Now that is smaller. So I think we need to get money in for people to upskill. I think the other is we need to get money in to put programs together, whether at two-year community colleges or four-year colleges or in a community center. We've got to continue to help the digital divide and the broadband and make sure people have that in their homes. And we have to encourage people to just try it, just try it. I think those are the key things I would say there.
And I think on accessibility, it's coming. I mean, I think underscored by the fact that so many people put their hands up in terms of who's actually used it already. It's here.
Yes.
It's arrived already. And I think about, I've been covering Apple and iOS and their new update in the iPhone 16. They're putting AI into Siri. And even people that are 85 that have an iPhone, they are going to have to get familiar with that technology. So accessibility is as much about, the macro of the technology is here. It's being incorporated into our phones. You won't have to go, hey, find me the photo of, or hey, what's a recipe for making this casserole? You can go, hey, what was that recipe that my friend texted me? And it's going to look through all of your text messages and your emails to pull that. And that's not a huge leap. I think sometimes we think about AI as, oh, it's the Terminator technology. AI is also about helping to find that recipe that you forgot who texted it to you, but you would just want to pull it up really quickly.
And then you'd have the robots actually.
And then you can have the robot, exactly. Yeah, robot made casserole, exactly. They can just do it for you. I want to get to a question from our virtual audience about NBC News specifically, which I think would be a good question for you, Chris. How do NBC News crews verify deepfakes and AI-generated content? And I have my own anecdotes too, but I'll let you take it.
So this is a constant endeavor for us. We have people across our organization who, from various different functions, are always looking out for what is real and what is not. And so there is quite a bit of software out there now that effectively is generative AI software to try to detect generative AI. And it is a very competitive space. We're currently testing a handful of solutions in that area. I will say that ultimately the most effective way to tell if something is real or something is fake is a very old-fashioned news gathering method, which is to pick up the phone and actually call them. Our news organization, several months ago, there was a fake robocall from President Biden to voters encouraging them not to vote in the primaries.
In New Hampshire, I believe it was.
In New Hampshire. Yeah. We got wind of it, and the way, it was very, very good. It was nearly imperceptible from the real Joe Biden. The way we figured out that it was fake was we picked up the phone and called his office to find out if this was him. And of course they said no, right? So the stage we're at now is that still sort of human skills and good old-fashioned reporting skills are the most effective way, and sometimes you can just see it and it's getting better, the technology is getting better and better, and so the software we use will get better as it goes, I have no doubt, but there's always going to be we're always going to pick up the phone to call somebody.
Even if it means delaying the story?
Even if that means being a little bit slower than we would normally.
You'd rather get it right than get it first. And I think that, your point earlier about the tips and tricks, like you let the journalists do the journalism. I mean, I think that actually AI has made certainly journalists, but I also hope the general public more skeptical, more aware of, okay, I'm looking at something, but am I really looking at something that actually happened? And I think that the AI is getting so good where you see something on Instagram, you see something on TikTok, you're like, wait, is that real? But I think that skepticism is broadly good.
The funny thing is, though, a lot of the research we do, things that we hear from consumers in various different points, is that most people actually don't really want fake content. They actually value the fact that it was created by a person and a human being or a place they can trust. That place may be NBC News or it may be your favorite YouTuber, right? But people actually really value handcrafted content in one way, shape, or form. And they are very skeptical of essentially machine-created content. And so as it becomes easier and easier to create this stuff, what's key is that folks in this room and others listening understand how to put that human touch on the skill and to not lose your humanity and your creativity. Use it as a tool to create something, to express yourself, whatever it may be, not to replace yourself. That's a very, very important distinction, and I think that's broadly what most people value is things that are real.
Humans still on top?
Right.
That's another running theme. Okay, so as we wrap up here soon, I do want to get to a question from our virtual audience from Denasia, who says, in what ways are the panelists using AI in their workplace? So now we're turning the tables on you. Any examples that you could share about how you've used AI where you are?
There's one that I absolutely love. We have created a sort of in-house tool that I loved the creation of it, where we are sourcing all of this information about from places like GLAAD and Urban League and NAACP and La Raza, and we're putting in content to help us write more inclusively, right? To make sure that we're using the right terms, to make sure that we're looking at where we put information and how we position information to make sure that it's inclusive and not offensive and things like that. And it's a tool that we're building in-house, and I'm just stoked about it because 90+% of population growth that's happened in this country in the last 15, 20 years has come from communities of color, and we need to be able to communicate in a way that is inclusive and effective. But I also, I use Canva for stuff when I'm trying to put together presentations a lot. I use a ton of, I use ChatGPT from time to time, but I also use a bunch of our in-house LinkedIn and Microsoft tools that are AI generated. Half of what you do when you're producing content in most apps now gives you the option for using AI and AI tools. I don't always select, even on LinkedIn when I'm putting a post up, I always say, I wonder what the AI is going to say with this post, right? I only select about half of it half of the time, but I love seeing what it does. So that's how I use it a good bit.
And we do have to wrap up here, but really quickly, any tools that you guys use, Kristina and Chris?
A lot of tools. We use a lot of tools. But ours are, knowledge management. One of the things, we have a lot of information and content that we create, so we are looking at knowledge management tools to make it easier for employees to find information. That's one.
At work, I'm really fascinated by the ability to translate into infinite number of languages. I think it's a lot of promising, really cool stuff there, and be able to individualize people's experiences. And then personally, I love DJX on Spotify.
They're giving you good mixes.
And I annoy the heck out of my kids with that, but it's just a wonderful, seamless experience. So.
All right, a nice note to end on. Yep. Chris, Kristina, Andrew, thank you so much. Give it up for the panel. Really great.
Thank you.
And again, just the first of a few that we've got here. And thanks to all of you in the audience as well. And by the way, you can visit NBCUacademy.com for more advice and also free educational content. Plenty of stuff on the site there.